If you've been thinking about starting freelancing, but you feel like you just don't know enough, you don't know how to get clients, you don't know what kind of business entity you should have, you don't know whether you should niche down or not. The only thing that matters is you taking action. I'm so excited today to have with me here my friend Kervin Myrtle.
What's going on?
We're both freelancers. Today, we're gonna talk about how you can get started freelancing. Where I'd like to start is what you don't need to get started. To get started freelancing, do you need a logo?
Honestly, no. Till this day, I still don't have a logo. I have a logo idea, but no. Simple as that.
All right, so I started out with a logo. I spent probably about a week creating my logo. And then I went into coming up with a business name. Do you need a business name to start freelancing?
You know what? You don't. It does help, though, so people know what to refer to you by and what have you. But honestly, you are your business, so you don't need a business name.
Do you think you need a website?
No. However, whatever your medium is, you do need a place for people to see what you do. Like for me, for example, I'm a photographer and videographer. So do I need a website? No. But I do need somewhere for people to see my work because the work speaks for itself. I just can't go to get a client and be like, hey, I do photography or I do videos, book me.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, yeah, so show me your stuff. Like send me a link. Like they're going to want to see if you're proven or not. You know, the proof is in the pudding kind of thing. So you need some kind of place that showcases whatever you do.
I think that's a great point. When I started out, I also put together a website. So I had my logo, I had my business name. I wrote down on 2 sides of college ruled paper,
Okay.
4 columns on each side, I brainstormed my business name. Let me tell you, that took days to do. When I finally figured out that, I did my logo, I put my website together. And I remember sitting there in my office, looking at my website, and I had no business. There's proof alone that you don't need a logo, you don't need a business name, you don't need a website. What about, do you think you need a bank account, like a business bank account?
No, not at all. Even for however many years, and I've been doing this for maybe 5+ years, I don't have a separate business account for my business.
Because all you need to do is have some place to cash the check.
Right.
And should you have a business bank account? It's recommended.
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
But do you need it to start? Should it be something that prevents you from starting freelancing?
No.
Absolutely not. Do you need an office?
That's a funny question because for me, anywhere that I go is my office.
Is your office.
You know, as long as I have my laptop, set of headphones, I'm good. You know, so an office is not necessary. You can literally work out of anywhere, depending on what you do, of course. You know.
For many years, I had an office. That didn't make any impact on my business. It didn't necessarily get me any more clients. And all it really gave me was a different mailing address. But it didn't actually help me at all. Do you need to have like a formal business entity? Like, do you need to be incorporated? Do you need to have an LLC set up?
No, not at all. And that's something that, again, you might think that you need, like an LLC or a DBA or what have you. But again, my biggest thing is that you are your business, you know, because I don't have either of those. No DBA, no LLC, at least not yet. I'm in the process of doing an LLC, but it's not something that you absolutely need in order to get going or starting to do the job, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't hold you back. Is it a good thing to do? Yes. Does it give you some protection?
Of course.
Yes. But has it held you back from freelancing? And the answer is no. But these are all the things that I find in talking with other freelancers, they just spin their wheels.
Yeah.
And I think what it really is, I heard this recently, Cody Sanchez had this quote. It was something along the lines of, procrastination is just you being afraid to find out that you're not good enough yet. For me, that hit me hard because I know for me, the times in life where I procrastinate, it's that self-doubt.
Right.
You know, it's that part that creeps in that keeps me from taking the action I need to.
That's good.
And I really think that's what's happening. Like with the freelancers that I've been talking with, there's something else there. It's not really that they haven't set up their corporation yet, their LLC. It's not really that they haven't put their website together. It's not really that they haven't put their portfolio together. It's really something else internally that's going on that they haven't dealt with. So you didn't have any of this stuff in place.
No.
How did you get started?
It's actually a funny story. I got started because I actually bought a camera from a good friend of mine, right? And I bought the camera for the hopes like, hey, this whole wedding videography thing is super awesome, but I need a camera. And I can't just have any camera, right? So it's funny because he happened to be selling his camera in order to get the newer version of said, camera or what have you. So I bought it off of him, again, specifically for video. And then I'm like, well, I just started to take the camera everywhere I went. And then I just started taking photos. And I found out that, oh, I actually love doing this. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had a camera. I bought a lens. Like I got a 50 millimeter because it was the cheapest lens. And we called it Nifty 50. I still have it to this day. It's my old trusty reliable, right? So I got a lens for it. And I just went around just taking photos. And luckily, I'm in atmospheres where there's always opportunity to be able to take photos, whether it was like a church event, and we have events all the time, or the job that I used to work at, they had events, honestly, every other week. So I started to take photos and just realized like, oh, I actually love doing this. Again, I wasn't good at it, and people would ask me, hey, do you shoot this or do you shoot that? I'm like, well, no, but maybe I could try, But it's funny because I didn't have any place to show them. Like I had no portfolio, so I just chose to just start doing a lot of things for free, like free headshots, free portraits, free framing sessions. The more and more things that I did, the more practice, the more better I got. I also studied at YouTube University, right? To watch a whole bunch of videos. You can learn anything off of YouTube, personally. And it can make you get better at whatever your craft or medium is quickly. So I started doing that, and then eventually I figured out what my niche was and what I love to shoot. Like I love shooting event photography. Like that's like my bread and butter. Can I do headshots? Sure. Can I do family portraits? Of course. And I will do that because they're fun. But if I had to pick one thing, it's definitely event photography. And then as of late, now I'm much more like a hybrid. So I shoot photos and videos. So a lot of videography for like events that happen locally. So for me, it just started to pick up. The more and more practice I got, the better I got. And then I was able to build a portfolio. And then I was actually able to start charging people because I had a lot more experience under my belt. So I was able to be like, hey, this is what I'm able to do, and here's the proof. So these are my rates, And all of it was just word of mouth because I never did any marketing for myself. It's just people saw it. They knew what I did. Every time they saw me, I had a camera in my hand. So I was like marketing myself, essentially. So in a nutshell, that's how I got started. I bought a camera, and the rest has started to build itself.
What I love about this story is you highlighted that you started for free. I think that's an underrated way to start. I think people feel like, and I've felt like for many years, you shouldn't work for free.
Why not? Why is that?
I feel like I'm not valuing my time, my expertise. I think at the end of the day, it might just be an ego thing.
It might be. It might be. Let's call it what it is. It might be.
Because you can actually easily get in with somebody when you say to them, hey, let me do something for free for you. You're like, who doesn't love the free 99 deal?
Right,
you know what I'm saying? Interesting. My story is the same. When I first started as a software developer, I started with a project for free. I was coming out of law school. And I was studying for the bar exam the second time because I had failed it the first time. And right after I had to study the bar exam the second time, I did a website for the tennis shop that I worked at back when I was in school. It was me just offering to them, hey, I'd like to do this for free. And they're like, great. And then eventually they came back to me and said, hey, we don't have a lot of money, but we'd like to pay you a little bit every week to maintain it. I mean, I love this so much, I would do it for free. Within a year, they hired me for almost a year after that to take that small little tiny website I built, and this has been when e-commerce started getting really big, build it out into a site so they could sell their products across the world.
Wow.
So that free job turned into a full year, almost a full year work. And then I had that client for another 15 years after that, between $50,000 and $100,000 worth of work from a free client.
It's crazy because imagine what would have happened if you never took or did that free job.
Great point. Yeah, what would have happened?
Right.
I might be a lawyer.
Right?
I'm miserable.
This
I
would be a
miserable.
different conversation.
It would be a completely different conversation. So getting started, there's different ways to get started, but you can actually get started for free. And then how did that pan out for you? How did you actually get paid for that first job?
I don't remember the exact first job, but I remember when things started to pick up significantly. And it was strictly because, to be quite honest, just straight word of mouth. Like people saw me. Luckily, it's almost like put yourself in an environment to be seen and to be discoverable. Or in your words, you like to say, like, be findable, right?
Yeah.
So for me, because I did a lot of photos and did a lot of events, and then people would see said photos, anytime they thought about photography, I was the one that came to their mind, right? And the cool thing about doing things and being exposed to people is that people know other people,
Yep.
And for me, it was one of those things that, like, hey, my friend is having a party for their 3-year-old. Do you do birthday parties? I'm like, well, I do now, and I think that's one of the biggest things I had to, like, overcome, is just not being so quick to say no to something because I don't have experience with that said thing.
Great point.
Another one of my friends, like, hey, my friend's kid is graduating high school. They need senior portraits. Do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, well, you should try it. I'm like, sure, why not? And I just started to just do as many kind of things as possible. So for me, when it came to the jobs, it just started to just like a domino effect, But I had to say yes and start doing them. And then once I was able to kind of track, it's interesting having some kind of craft or skill set that you're able to see the progress. And you kind of know. It becomes a point in time where it's like, you know what, I've been doing this for X amount of time. For me, it might be like a year or two. Like, I'm confident enough to start charging now because my work speaks for itself. I'm no longer a quote unquote beginner or rookie.
Right.
Even if I'm still like new, but I have a lot more experience now. Right. So from that point on, I felt more confident being able to charge people like, hey, we have this event. Can you help us? I'm like, of course. These are my rates. What do you think? What do you need? And it became great because I'm like, well, I'm actually providing people with a service that they need. Mm-hmm. So that was actually a really cool part for me,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One thing you said I loved is that when someone asks you to do something that you hadn't necessarily done before, maybe you felt like, or maybe you even said, well, I've never done that before. But the fact was you actually went ahead and did it.
Right.
And I know for me, one of the things that helped me so much when I was first starting as a freelancer was when someone said, hey, can you do this? And I'd be like, absolutely. But I didn't know how to do it.
Man.
But all I had to do was go learn how to do it.
Right.
So I think just
Yeah.
having that can-do attitude.
Yep.
I think for any freelancer wanting to start out or trying to start out, it's having that kind of everything. I think Maria Forleo says everything is figure-outable. You can do it.
Right.
But you just have to take that first step. You have to be willing to say yes. You have to be willing to maybe take on the thing that you're not completely comfortable with doing or familiar with doing.
Right.
Because you're going to grow.
To your point, honestly, the first couple years, I was very much a no man because of fear. Like, people would ask me, do I do this or do I do that? Can I do this? I'm like, no. Because in my mind, I'm like, if I do this and I mess up, that's it. That's my business. It's a wrap. They're going to remember the bad. Like, people remember the bad a lot more than they remember the good. So I was in my head a lot. But to your point, you mentioned growth. That's how you grow. I did realize at a point, I'm stuck here and I'm not growing as a photographer, as a creative. I'm not growing. And because I wasn't stretching myself and getting outside my comfort zone. But it wasn't until I started saying yes, and to your point, everything is figure-outable. So for me, I just started to whenever I would have a project that was new to me, I have a lot of photographer friends or what have you, I would go to their page, see if they had like any photo shoots of that thing, and just study them. And even take screenshots of like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And that way it just helped me be more confident in it. But I had to just overcome it at a certain point. It's like, I'm gonna become a yes man. And I think I grew so much quicker because of that.
Another thing I want to highlight is something that you're really good at is relationships. You're good with people. Now, not every freelancer is going to be naturally good with people. I think you're very much an extrovert. I'm very much an introvert by nature. Not as an excuse. It's just I know kind of how I'm wired. Yeah. That can be a barrier to a lot of freelancers because a lot of freelancers tend to be creative types, and a lot of those creative types tend to be introverts. For someone like that, I think one of the most important things is to think about what is going to help you, what's going to help you most long-term build your business. Is it going to be just being really, really good at your craft? Or is it going to be being really good with people? I'm imagining for you, especially since what you were talking about was starting out with things that you didn't necessarily know exactly how to do. I'm sure you did a good job, but my guess is it wasn't world class.
Nope, not at all. Not at all.
My first stuff that I did was not world class. So how was it that you were able to then continue to build, even though you weren't like the best in the world at photography or videography or whatever you were doing for those clients early on?
I want to say you mentioned the people part of it. And I do love people so much. And the thing is, I realized that people had a need, you know? And the cool part about starting to do things for free is that it takes this level of pressure off. Not to say that, hey, if I do a bad job, whoop-de-doo, it was free. But like when someone is paying you for something and you mess up, then it's just like, oh gosh, or it's not as great as you want it to be. Like there's this added layer of pressure and stress that is there automatically that just kind of can hinder you, right? So I think for me, one, realizing that all people have needs. You know, if someone is asking about a service or what have you, then you're able to meet that need. Also, I think one of the biggest things for me is that it's almost like, you know how some people just like invite themselves to like people's houses or whatever the case. Like, I would legitimately volunteer myself for everything that I could. You know, like if there was any kind of remote event anywhere, I'm like, hey, you need a photographer? Like, well, I'm like, what do you do now? That's me. You know, like it's just in a respectful way, of course. You know, and then I would do it for free. And then they would see it and they'd be so grateful. And I'm like, yeah, this is good. And it kind of gave me a boost of confidence. Like, you know, I can do this.
Yeah.
You know, again, with the pressure and stress out of it, because they're not paying me, you know, I volunteered myself. And to be honest, if I had to count how many events I did for free in the beginning, easily between, I want to say 20 to 50. Like, and I grew that much faster.
That's a lot.
And I'm able to build relationships a lot quicker that way, organically. And there's no money involved, so it wasn't weird at all. It's like, hey, this guy just gave us some photos for free, and look at them. They're pretty good, you know? And it's funny, because I see some photos that I did initially, and I'm just like, oh, gosh, I didn't do the setting right. Oh, my goodness, it's out of focus. The white balance is horrible. Like, all these little things I can nitpick, but then I'm able to look at it now like, you know what? There has been growth. But the biggest thing is realizing that, you know what? Whether you're introvert or extrovert, that people do have needs, and you could actually be the person to help them with that need. And people remember that, you know? They remember the experience. They remember the interaction, as long as you kind of put them first in a genuine, authentic way, you know?
I love that. There's a scripture where Paul is talking about Timothy, and he's writing to the church, and he's saying, hey, I have no one else who takes such genuine interest in people. Therefore, I'm sending him to you. And what I get from that scripture is that it was such a rare quality. Yeah. And I think it still is today. I think it's such a rare quality to have that genuine interest in other people's needs.
Right.
So I think you bring up a great point. When you just meet people's needs in a way where you're genuinely trying to help, you're going to get repeat clients. Obviously, if you're doing it for free, that's attractive as well. But the truth is, if you do free work, that's bad work. People aren't going to call you back, even if it's for free.
Right.
So I think it's really paying attention, like you're saying, really paying attention to those needs of the person, making that first and foremost. You're going to stand out. Like people are going to notice you. And you can't help but get better if you are really in tune with the needs of those people. So what we talked about today so far, we talked about you don't need all these things that people think you need. And you don't necessarily need to get paid for that first gig. So what is it that we do need to get started? For me, one of the first things that comes to mind is there's a scripture in Matthew 6 where Jesus is talking about having your focus and your priorities right. And what he says to the people who are listening to him, his followers, he's saying, don't worry about so many things. You know, as a freelancer, you could start to worry about like, oh, how am I going to get clients? How am I going to like pay my bills? Whatever, like all these worries. And what Jesus is saying in the scripture, and I'll read a little bit of it. He says, don't worry, saying, what shall we eat or what shall we drink or what shall we wear? He basically says, people worry about all these things. They chase after these things. But the truth is that God knows that we need them. So he says, what Jesus says, just seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be provided for you. I believe what Jesus is saying is God has his part to do. He's going to take care of, like Jesus talked about earlier in that passage, he talks about how God takes care of the birds. Like they get fed. They're not like out there starving or begging for food, right? He says it clothes the lilies of the field. Like the flowers are beautiful, but they don't have to figure out where they're going to get that beauty from, or, clothing or whatever. Like we worry about all that stuff.
Yeah.
And what Jesus is saying is just you have, right? Like understand your assignment. Like you have a job to do. This was one of the big scriptures that helped me out when I was first starting out, because, right, when you start out, you might not have that many jobs. You might not have that much income. And so I remember going on these walks, like these prayer walks with God, and just thinking and praying through the scripture that I'm going to trust God. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I didn't want to go back to the law. That was not, I had zero enjoyment in all those years of like studying the law. And even like I did just a couple small transactions as a lawyer. I didn't enjoy any of it. I didn't enjoy clerking in the law firm. So I was like, I'm going to go after this, but I'm scared. I was like, no one in my family was a business person. No one in my family was an entrepreneur. So I didn't really have the skills that it took. I just said, I'm just going to trust. I'm going to make God the priority in my life, and I'm going to trust this scripture that he's going to take care of the rest. And I literally remember praying. I said, even if for the rest of my life I have to live hand to mouth, like paycheck to paycheck, if it is something that draws me closer to God and causes me to rely on him, like that's what I'm willing to do. And the truth is, it's never been that way. I've never had to live hand to mouth, but I've seen that God has been faithful through all these years. So that is a scripture that has really helped me. I think it can help a lot of freelancers. Is there anything for you that's kind of helped you keep moving forward?
I think for me, it just helped me to have a mindset of taking a step out on faith, right? And trusting in God it's a simple thing to say, but it's also easier said than done. For me, it's almost like the concept of you pray and you really want a job, yet you don't do any applications. So for me, it's almost like I have to give God something to work with, And for me, a lot of times, fear was the thing that was holding me back.
Yeah.
A lot, significantly, because I'm just like, hey, I mentioned it before, but like, if I mess up, then I'm gonna look bad. What are people gonna think? This is my business here, Like I'm not. And then I think for me, it helped to change my thinking in that I can even learn from mess ups or screw ups. But I just have to remember that at the end of the day, like God's in control, And I think for me, that gave me a huge sense of peace. Like, you know what? All I can do is my best, and then just allow God to do the rest. Like that's one of like my mantras is like, you know what? I'm going to give him something to work with. I'm going to step out in faith, and I'm just going to learn from anything and anyone. And when I did that, I was able to see like God moving significantly. Whether it was client work or I'm like, hey, should I get this camera? Should I not? I don't know. It's expensive. Is it going to be worth the investment? And then just taking a leap. Like, you know what? Just do it. Like, it's going to be okay, And I'm like, and then I did it. I pulled the trigger. I'm like, oh, this was the best thing I did. And it paid for itself, But just really not letting, it's almost like a fear versus faith kind of thing. And having a faith over fear mentality. So for me specifically, when it comes to my craft and my business and what have you, the biggest thing that has helped me over the years is having the mindset that, you know what, God is in control. I'm going to work like it all depends on me, but pray like it all depends on God, right? And have that kind of mindset. And it's kind of cool because even when things don't work out how it's supposed to, I still have a level of peace knowing that God's in control.
Great
and
point.
When it does work out, I'm just like, well, of course it did. God's in control, so however it shakes out, like it never shakes my faith or my character because I'm choosing to trust in God, and learn from the good, but then also the bad, and using every experience as a lesson, because then that's how you grow. So for me, it was very much like, hey, you need to change your mindset and have it be more focused on God and just watch what he does, with just a little bit of faith that you give him.
Yeah. Now, speaking of focusing on God, I know there are things that you do that are outside of your freelancing that where you're actually also using your skills, using your talents to like serve God. You're part of, so you and I go to church together.
Right.
You're part of our church's media team, and which is kind of under the umbrella of Philo.
Yep.
For our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with what that means, what exactly is Philo?
So Philo stands for first in, last out. So for us at our church, that is honestly the people behind the scenes, behind the curtains. So we help out with the slides, the audio, the visuals, the cameras, the live stream, what you see on the website, whether it's photos or videos, anything that, any kind of media that you could think of, or audio. Like, we're very much so the people behind the scenes that kind of help things to run smoothly, and makes sure that anything that we need for service in any kind of capacity is met. And it's really cool because it's a team of people, and we each have our own designated roles. We have our workstations every Sunday. Like, hey, this Sunday I'm going to be doing photos. This Sunday this person's doing videos. They're going to be on slides. Like, it's so cool to be, and I love being in a team environment. Like, I love that, right?
Because you're a people person.
Well, yes. So, and you learn so much. And again, it's like we're meeting a need, all in hopes of that when people come, they're so focused is that they could experience Jesus exactly how he should be experienced, with no distractions, with no kind of hiccups or anything. Like, the goal is Jesus, and we get a chance to play a part in that.
It is amazing how, as a team, it does require every single person to be part of that. And just think, like, if you weren't there, right, like, there would be a gap. I'm grateful for you guys. Also, just to have, the video and the audio from that can be such a powerful thing to be able to publish on social media, so other people can see. I want more people to come to church. So other people can see that, but only through the efforts of, using your talents that you're using as a freelancer, but you can also use them to directly serve God and to serve other people, and ultimately to serve the community. Getting back to like tactical things, we need also a hub. As freelancers, we need some place where, let's say, you talked about how word of mouth has helped you to grow your business from the very beginning. I could say the same thing. So much of my work has come through referrals. Just one person sending me a lot of work, or that person telling someone else something a lot of work. But let's say someone hears about you for the first time. What do you typically do? Let's say, because I remember the one time we were at the restaurant, the guy's like, hey, and like, what did you do then? Do you just be like, oh, hey, I'm Kerwin Myrtle. Just look me up, right? Like, how did you let him know where he could find out more about you?
So for me, like, my quote unquote hub is easily Instagram. Because of my craft and my business, I'm video and photography oriented, and the cool thing about Instagram is that I'm able to showcase both of those, whether it's on my direct feed or page, or one of my clients, because then they're posting it to their stories, and I make sure I save them in case people want to know, like, hey, so what do you do, or who have you worked with? I could tell you, but let me show you instead, So for me, it's huge because it's almost like having a live resume, in itself. Because people, they'll get a chance to know who you are by interacting with you, which is important. But then I feel like your social media is a huge thing too. Even if they're not able to interact with you in person, for example, like, let's be honest, when you hear about someone, even if you don't know who someone is, what are you going to do? You're going to Google them, you're going to Facebook, you're going to go on Instagram, you're going to do the things. All of a sudden, we become private investigators, right? And we're able to learn someone really quick, see who they are, what's important to them, and what have you, all within a matter of seconds and minutes, right? So for me, my biggest thing is having the Instagram as my hub to let people see who I am, but also what I do. It's an extension of myself.
Now, how often do you post on Instagram? Do you have to like be on there every single day posting everything that you do?
That's a great question. So I would say, and this is funny because I feel like I don't do the best job at this, but I would say yes, because people want to, and this is what I'm learning, people want to see you. They want to.
True.
And the more they see you, like, the more they know and learn about you. If it's the thought in itself, and I could relate to this personally, can be intimidating. And I'm speaking from an extrovert. It could be overwhelming. I just want to do my thing. I just want to do my craft. I want to go to my gigs. I want to do my videos. I want to do my photos. But at the same time, I'm doing myself a disservice if I don't in some way, shape, or form document what I'm doing. Whether it's something on my story, like, hey, I'm at this event, I'm shooting this. Check out the clips, you know. And I'm trying to be more intentional with that these days. Because the cool thing is with being a part of the community and meeting people, the more they start to know you, they're like, "Okay, what are you doing? Like, you need to post stuff. We want to see." They'll challenge me, like, "Hey, we need to see more of you." And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I appreciate the accountability. I'm gonna do better, right? So, to answer your question, I would recommend that you try to be and it doesn't need to be a big thing. It doesn't need to be every single day, but it needs to have some level of consistency depending on what you do and what your business is. That way, consistency kind of breeds a little bit of confidence, not in for yourself, but also for potential clients. If they see consistency, I think it breeds a level of trust in you.
Agreed. I think those are great points. I think what I wanted to bring out was that you've had a ton of freelancing gigs, but you don't post necessarily every day, or at least you don't post content about your freelancing.
Right.
You do post things on social media, but that's also, you want to show who you are as a person. Because people don't necessarily just want what you do. They want to know who you are. They want to know, like, and
Yes.
trust you. And the only way they can get to know, like, and trust you is to actually get to know who you are, like, behind the camera lens, right?
Right.
The one thing that I really wanted to talk about today too is we're different. We're in different places as freelancers. I've been full-time for more than 20 years. Your freelancing primarily has been side hustle, correct?
Right.
I think in this day and age, especially with the advent of AI, where there are so many people who are either fearing losing their jobs or have lost their jobs or are trying to hedge against that, when I think of freelancing, I think of it as something that you can use, you can do proactively, because at some point in our lives, we're probably all going to be in that state where we're either looking for a job, maybe we had a job for a while. Things don't necessarily last forever. So I think in that respect, as a freelancer, I'm used to that. But for someone in a position where you're normally a full-time employee, you might face that prospect at some point of not having a job for a while. What would you say has been the biggest benefit of having that skill as a freelancer, in that sort of a situation?
So that's actually a very great question because for me, I was working full time for a long amount of years, like the typical 9 to 5, where this was the side hustle. So when it is the side hustle, there's a level of, I don't want to say nonchalantness that goes behind it,
Sure.
but like it's like you don't need it, right? It's just like, okay, I'm working at 9 to 5. I might get a gig a couple times a month, if that, right? But then you make a shift to where this, not by choice, but you have an option now to make it a full-time endeavor. And now it's just like, okay, now I have to put in the work and be a lot more intentional about this business and craft. Because if I don't, then, well, I have bills, I have needs to meet. So it kind of puts a little fire under you by just life circumstances. But it's been very actually great, at least for me personally, because I'm learning like, okay, what goes into like running a business. Like you definitely need to be, since you don't have a set schedule, you are your own boss. So you need a level of discipline that, like self-discipline, I should say. And you also need to be organized to some capacity because you have to keep track. In my case, no one's going to keep track of all my gigs and the time and all my invoices. Like no one is going to do that but myself. I
True.
essentially am doing all of it, right? So it brings a level of independence, but it's also kind of, I want to say faith building, but also character development as well, because you have to just learn all the things and be all of the roles, So it's actually a really cool place to be, because then you're kind of forced to learn, and you're like you have to again be very intentional about who like your networking and what you do, and just getting clients, and especially if you don't market yourself. So now you kind of rely on the word of mouth and like kind of have to look at, okay, where are opportunities? You kind of have to find them essentially, and that's where networking comes into like it's huge, because then people know you, they reach out to you and what have you. So for me, in this particular season of this freelance job or business being full time, it's taught me a lot. I feel like I've grown a lot, but I've had to grow a lot in my trust in God in this process, because there's a level of uncertainty where sometimes you just don't know. Because you may have, I don't know, like 5, 6 gigs in 1 week, and then the next week you don't have any, you know?
Yeah, feast
So
or
it's
famine.
very, yeah, you know, so it's one of those things that, you know, you trust the process, you grow, you can see what you could do better, see how you could build a level of consistency. For me, it's learning like, you know what, to do this, it helps to have a level of like retainer with some clients, because then there's a level of consistency that you need. So now you know exactly how much you're making, you know what's going to be coming in. You don't have to worry about like, hey, am I going to be okay this month? Am I not? Like, no, you develop a system where you can plan accordingly and be confident with how your business is running.
That's a great tip. I like the idea of the retainer. I wanted to circle back though on something else that you said.
Yeah.
You talked about networking. I'm going to go back to the introvert side.
Okay, let's go.
You're naturally good with people. What advice or what tips could you offer someone who's maybe not as confident? Like, for example, me going into a co-working space and trying to build some new relationships. For me, when I think of that, an introvert walking into a room full of strangers, there are days for sure when I can maybe play ambivert role, but for the most part, it can be terrifying. Are there any tips that you could offer to help someone maybe who is a little bit more on the introverted side to help them succeed in those opportunities where they have to network with others?
I would say, to be quite frank, always just ask a lot of questions, you know, because if there's one thing to be real, people do love to talk about themselves, right? And for an introvert, that's like the cheat code, because you don't have to do much of talking. You have to be a very good active listener.
Yep.
Because the more questions you ask to someone, it's very easy to eventually spot a need. Like the more and more they talk about themselves or their business, one, you get a chance to know and learn them as a person. But if there is any potential opportunity there, then you'll be able to be like, oh, you said you do this for work? Tell me more about that, you know? And then once you identify a need, like, hey, have you ever considered maybe, I don't know, maybe doing some video work for your company? Because a lot of our digital age now, like, that's a big thing. Like, and then you could even talk about what you know, like, so it lends itself to like a natural flow, but just don't be afraid to ask people questions, you know? And then if you are really an introvert, then bring a friend with you, you know, like, hey, this is my friend so-and-so, we're just doing this for my business, you know, and then it becomes a group thing, because now you have like a, you know, like a sidekick, you know, a partner in crime, if you shall, and then that'll make you feel a lot more comfortable. For me, because I am how I am, I could just go in any room and just talk to everyone, because that's just naturally how I navigate. But for someone who might find a little bit of difficulty in that, I would say like, hey, ask people questions, be genuine and authentic about it. And then that'll just kind of bring people's walls down for you to build because even if they don't have a need for whatever you do, they're gonna know someone who else does.
Great point.
You know, they're like, hey, you know, but I do have a buddy that has this kind of company, and I think he might be able to use your services. So you got a card? You mind if I give him your number? Of course, you know, and boom, you just made a contact by association, you know? So yeah, it's like, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't think too much into it. Just trust the process, ask questions, and, you know, try to find a need if you can.
I like those two tips that you gave. They're great tips, because the first one, when you talk about asking questions, as freelancers, that is going to be the key to doing any good client project.
Right.
That was one of the things they taught us back in law school. They said the most important skill of a lawyer is to know how to ask the right questions.
That's good.
The same thing as a freelancer. Like, if you're really going to deliver a great project for the client, or honestly find more work for yourself, it's going to be asking a lot of questions. And that's how you unearth the stuff, because 99% of the time when the client comes to you with a problem or a job, that's not the thing that they really want. I remember years ago, a client coming to me and saying like, hey, we need a new website. I said, okay, cool. I can do that for you. But why do you want a new website? And I looked at it and it was like maybe a little dated, but it wasn't that bad. But by that time I had already learned, okay, I don't want to just help them put together a new website that looks a little fresher. I want to actually help their business. In this one particular instance, it was a credit union. And I found out that they were struggling to get people, this is years ago, struggling to get people, members of the credit union, to download their app. And what happens when you download the app, now you use the remote deposit. And that saves them all these labor hours. Because they got to pay cashiers. They got to pay people to man the drive-through. But when you have everyone doing remote deposit, you save all of that money in labor costs.
That's good.
Also, they kept mailing out all these paper documents because they couldn't get anyone to sign up for the electronic documents.
Right.
So the website that I designed for them was not just a new website, it was a website that highlighted those two areas front and center. You could not miss download the app, and it made the app look really cool. And then there was the big button for the electronic documents, and they saved almost $100,000 that first year. All this was really like asking the client more questions.
Right.
So I love that you talked about that, because it's a good people skill, but it's also a great skill for freelancers. The other thing I loved, because this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
The other thing I loved is like bring along a friend.
Right.
So you're not the only person in that room. Or you know, I know like we went to a conference recently.
Yep.
I knew some people there, but for the most part, it was a group of strangers. And you were always helping to kind of like, yeah, go over there, go talk to that guy, right?
Sure
like
did.
I wanted to, but I was feeling timid, right? So to
Yeah.
have that other person there to kind of encourage you, those are great tips. The other question I wanted to ask you is, what do you think makes someone likable, right? Because it's one thing to go into an environment and say, just start asking someone a lot of questions, peppering someone with questions. At some point, that can start to feel like an interrogation.
Very true.
So
yeah.
part of it, you do need to have a little bit of personality when you do it, or at least be willing to, like, after you ask a question, be willing to share something from yourself.
Yeah.
But I think there are things that make some people likable. I think for some people it comes naturally. So maybe for you, something that comes naturally. Is there anything you can think of that could help, that introverts like me could work on to become a little bit more likable?
That's a good question. It's interesting because you never want to come off as disingenuous or fake or phony, right? And to your point, when asking people questions, there is a balance, because you don't want them to feel like they're in a police precinct, like under interrogation, right? So you don't want you don't want that. It's not an interview. But I think a couple of things. Like one, I think about if there's something that you see that you can connect on right away, whether it's like something that they're wearing, or I'm a very big, I love sneakers, you know what I'm saying? So if I see someone wear a pair of sneaks, I'm like, yo, those are nice. Like, I either have a pair of those, I've been thinking about getting a pair of those, or like, yo, are those comfortable? Because like, I love sneakers, and just finding a connecting point. And sometimes it's not right, like something that they're wearing and that's visual, but that's like easy pickings. I guess that's low-hanging fruit, if you shall. But then also, as you're talking to someone and asking the questions, just looking for a connector. Because to be honest, whenever you're talking to someone and there's like, you find that moment where they like something that you like, and it's like, you can just tell a difference, like night and day. They kind of light up. You're like, snap. Well, you do photography also? What kind of camera do you use? What kind of lenses? Okay, but what about this? You like the zoom lenses? You like the prime lenses? Me, I'm a prime lens guy. But like when you're able to find a connection point, and you're not always going to find one, but when you do find one, just like I would say, capitalize on that. Ask more questions, but also now this is the opportunity for you to share more about yourself, and then they're gonna be more interested. Like, hey, so what about you? Like, what do you do? Like, what do you like? So I would say and these are just little things, but I think they can help. Just, if there's something you could compliment them on that you see, attire, wardrobe, whatever it is, or as you're asking them questions and learning about them, but also talking about yourself, we want the balance. It should be 50-50, ideally. If you're able to find a connection point, and here's the cool part too, like sometimes there may be something that they like that you don't necessarily like, but a friend of yours likes, or a significant other likes, like that you're able to kind of bridge the gap that way. And like, hey, a buddy of mine does the same exact thing. Like, tell me more about that. He does this or she does that. And just, again, capitalizing on those connecting opportunities.
That's good.
Right?
So what I hear you saying is that you don't need to go in and talk all business.
Nope.
You don't need to go in and try to figure out, like, how do I ask this person if they want my help without asking them, right? You don't have to talk about that stuff. You can talk about just things that you can relate to someone on a human level.
Right.
That goes for in-person. I believe that also goes for social media. We don't always have to post about what we do. I rarely post about what I do. I need to do that more.
Same.
I need to do that more, like what I do as a freelancer. But I definitely post a lot of stuff. I'll post stuff from church. I'll post like outings that we go on as a group. I'll post family stuff. I'll post when I go play golf. I love to play golf. I'll
Right,
post that.
right.
I need to post more music stuff. I never post any music stuff.
Right, you should.
Yeah.
Right.
But like one thing I love is that Omar Altakori, he teaches this thing, it's called the 5 Fs. Like, so in addition to whatever you do as a freelancer, you can share about your faith. You can share about food that you love, whether you're a foodie, whether you like to bake or cook, or you just like to go out to restaurants. You can share fitness.
Like
And
that.
I know, like you're hardcore in the gym multiple days a week.
I do love the gym. I do love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I do work out too. I don't go to the gym currently, but like I love to play golf. I used to play a lot of soccer growing up, and so you can show that. So faith, family as well. Like family get-togethers, family milestones, birthdays, whatever it is. You know, even church family. Like I think I like doing church family stuff, and faith, family, food, fitness, and fashion. Like you mentioned, you're a sneakerhead. How many people are going to connect with just because they love the same pair of shoes that you're wearing?
Right.
Or they just love the fact that you love shoes. Those, I think, are the connections that are underrated.
It's good.
That will bond us to people and help get to that know, like, and trust factor.
Yep.
I think you can get there quicker than people think.
Yep.
And that's really all you need. You don't need to be the best freelancer in the world.
Yeah.
It helps to be the best known, but I think also the best liked and the best trusted. It doesn't have to be the best in the world. It can be just in your circle. So people like, if they know you, you're giving them a chance to know you through these 5 Fs, but then they will like you. You don't need everyone. You don't need the whole world to respond.
Facts.
You only can handle a small handful. Like, how many clients do you think you can actually handle in a month's time?
You know, that's a good question. Depending on the job, the gig, honestly, maybe like 5-ish, you know, not a lot. Again, it depends on the demand and the job itself.
I would agree with that number. Like for me, I think 5 or 6 is the most I've ever juggled at the same time in my life. Let me tell you, that was exhausting. So when you think about sharing these things, you might be feeling, I want to share this because I'm going to turn somebody away. Good. You don't want everyone to respond.
Facts,
You only need a few people. And by putting yourself out there and sharing those things that you really love and that are really a part of who you are, you're going to connect with people. And that's going to get you in the door way faster than trying to prove that you're the best at this freelance craft that you have.
Right. I hope you guys are writing this down. All right, taking notes. I hope you guys are writing this down.
I love those points. Yeah. I mean, there's so much because I feel like we need to do at least a part 2 or part 3.
Right? We should. We should.
Yeah, I think, but for today, was there anything else you wanted to share? I think we can wrap this for today. Was there any other thoughts you had?
I think you had some really great questions. It's really cool to be able to open up and get into this freelance world, because freelance can be a lot for different people. You know, I know you have a friend that does makeup. I know a lot of people who do media. You do like the website. Like, so there's so many different things that fall under the umbrella of freelancing that is so broad, you know. So I love being able to talk and learn about what other people's experiences when it comes to their businesses, you know. So no, I think this was great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it was a pleasure, as always. And I do think for those who are listening and watching, I think really to take this to heart, especially in these times, we don't know what's going to happen with AI.
Yeah.
I see the developments that are happening and I see the acceleration. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is going to replace a lot of jobs. So I think there's no time like the present to be able to hedge against that we all have skills, right? Like we all have something that we love to do. Take a chance, take a step of faith and put yourself out there and just try, even if it's for free. You can try doing something for free in this day and age. I think that's going to be a skill. It's going to help you maybe go through those rough times of maybe you will get to the point where you don't have a job. Or something will change in your life, and you can always fall back on the skill that you developed. So that is it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next episode.